Hey guys, what's up? My name is Matthew. Today, I'm gonna to show you a new game review from my very original is IGN. Uh, but not one. I will bring two review. I will record two review to you guys from IGN. So the first one is Murderer Soul Suspect. On available. I think available on PC. I think yeah. Uh, yeah. So so uh, without further ado, let's watch. Let's watch this review. And the next one, I will bring you a Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon review. Yeah, so let's enjoy this two review and enjoy. We will start in 3, 2, 1.
This crude drawing of a bell has been left at the scene of several murders
Leading
over the
police to
past
refer
few
to the
weeks.
murderer as the Bell Killer.
We spoke with a public relations officer.
Authorities are asking anyone with any leads to contact the
This picture of a
SPD's
bell is a
anonymous
calling
tip
card
line.
the police
Murdered Soul Suspect's first red herring comes 5 minutes in. As dead Detective Ronan O'Connor, you are promised an enormous and exciting ghostly skill set with which to solve complex crimes, right wrongs, and gain unbridled access to the real-world town of Salem, Massachusetts. But by the time the credits roll, that promise has only been partially fulfilled. Being a ghost in Murdered is enjoyable in fits and starts, yet the use of your powers is brutally limited, resulting in an almost entirely scripted and therefore watered-down afterlife experience.
I think I found it.
Show me.
There's a button on the side of the gun rack.
Our hero Ronan is a gravel-voiced lone wolf cliché under a fedora, yet the mystery lying at his feet is more unusual than most. Ronan has a series of bullet holes in his chest, and his unfinished business is to discover the identity of his own killer. It's a powerful whodunit setup, which kept me invested just for the 10 hours it took to reach the reveal, despite Murdered's handful of narrative shortcomings elsewhere. An insistent yet irrelevant subplot involving Ronan's wife, for example, evokes a particularly clunky romance novella. The thoughts of possessed citizens, which Ronan can read, are oddly mundane.
Would a new police chief do better?
And the supporting cast are a bunch of overly familiar stereotypes, bar Joy, a spirited young medium who simply doesn't get enough screen time.
Not me. I'm a nobody.
Similarly, Salem, with its real-life rich and notorious history, feels wasted as a character. Murdered's small sandbox offers little variation in environment, and at every turn restricts the natural instinct to explore it. One of its more interesting features, a ghostly overlay of parts of the town during its most notorious years in the 1600s, is mostly used as an environmental trick to prevent you from going beyond the game world's close confines.
Not going that way. Yeah, great idea, Baxter. Tamper with the evidence.
Such limitations extend to your toolbox. While Ronan can, theoretically, do all the cool things you'd want a ghost detective to be able to do, you'll rarely find any use for his abilities outside of the tightly scripted story which you're funneled through. This is particularly frustrating, considering Ronan's investigations in Murdered require very little actual brain work from us. The business of solving puzzles, which boils down to analysis of a crime scene by either collecting every clue and selecting the most relevant one, or linking together a series of clues to form a cohesive timeline of events, equates to meaningless busy work, as the solution is more often than not blindingly obvious from the get-go. When the answers aren't so obvious, and generally this is when the task at hand, not the solution, is obtuse, there seems to be no consequence for failure. Even when you don't guess the most relevant clue on your first attempt, there is no option but to get to the answer eventually through process of elimination. While you're rated on your detective work on a case-by-case basis, the judgment seems, well, meaningless. Nothing changes in the narrative, and there's no overall rank offered at the end of the game. Enemy enemy encounters, on the other hand, offer more room for freedom and tactical thinking. The only way to dispose of Murdered's genuinely frightening soul-sucking demons is to get immediately behind them, and the only way to get immediately behind them is to teleport via the residue of individual ghost souls. It's a neat, fun idea, and one that is bizarrely underutilized for a game trying to sell an atmosphere of danger. A multitude of side quests pump a little life into Murdered. Populated throughout Salem are ghosts who, like Ronan, are stuck between this world and the next at the mercy of their unfinished business. Ronan can help these people move on by solving their conundrums, and many of these encounters offer nice little human touches in a larger story that regularly serves to remind you of the futility of death.
The thing is, if she hadn't jumped off that cliff, I never would have found my real soulmate.
Hey, you! Hey, can you hear me? Come back!
There are some great concepts in Murdered Soul Suspect, but they feel undercooked or underutilized, and the lack of demand for any real input from us makes Murdered feel like a pick-a-path game where there's only one path. It scrapes by on the power of its central whodunit mystery, but I can't help but feel that Murdered Soul Suspect is 10 hours worth of unfinished business. For more on Murdered Soul Suspect, stay with IGN. Now here's some of Ronan doing his thing in the afterlife.
What am I worried about? Nothing is gonna happen.
I don't know who at Ubisoft is responsible for Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon, but I just want to say to them, thanks. This is the strangest, most fascinating spin-off in recent memory, and I love it despite its inconsistency. Is it a game parody? Is it an 80s throwback? Is it a Far Cry game? Is it an action movie? Yes! If you're waiting to hear how this ties into Far Cry 3, don't hold your breath. It's a completely separate story starring Rex Power Colt, Cyborg Commando, and Profanity Expert.
Let's show them how Cyber Commandos get it done.
Mark 4 style, motherfucker!
You'll use ridiculous space guns and ninja stars to cleanse a neon-lit island of its evil Omega Force occupants. Also, there are dragons that shoot lasers out of their faces. Blood Dragon doesn't dwell much on story, though, which gives it more room for badass action, ridiculous enemies, and non-stop jokes, plus a bunch of references that nerds are gonna go nuts for. It swings and misses with a few 16-bit cutscenes that go on way too long, but occasionally it knocks it out of the park with a Predator reference or hysterical sex montage. The dialogue, though, is a special sort of wonderful, and that's what we're gonna remember this thing for.
I feel rock and roll already.
Concern. Detecting elevated body temperature.
Shitballs! I'm burning up!
Blood Dragon's jokes come through best during its hysterical self-aware missions. Killing 4 angry sewer-dwelling turtles for conspiring against humanity is almost as hilarious as the main character getting pissed off at the in-game tutorial prompts.
Crouch to go lower.
Just let me kill people, damn it!
Punching a reactor to save the world? Obviously that's how Rex Power Colt gets it done. Also, there are enough knowingly terrible one-liners and puns to make my inner 80s action movie fan puke purely out of joy.
Blah, 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 kill, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, and the highly appropriate soundtrack is like a magical John Carpenter Daft Punk synth-based baby. In a world where the sky is made of scan lines, nothing could make more sense. Blood Dragon is about a 50-50 split of old and new. It is, despite its retro decor, essentially a reskinned version of the excellent Far Cry 3. And all of its mechanics are at work here. You still throw stuff to distract guards, sneak through the brush, chain your stealth kills, reclaim enemy outposts, and bounce between an open world to explore and closed-off linear missions. How you accomplish your goals along the way, though, man, could not be more different. Rex puts Steve Austin's bionics to shame. This guy never gets tired, never runs out of air, and never gets hurt by falling. That's pretty badass before you give him a quad-barrel shotgun with flaming shells. You're fast, efficient, and it feels great to obliterate enemies en masse. I also love interacting with dragons, which function a lot like angrier versions of Far Cry 3's tigers. If you're crouching and quiet, it's easy to lure them toward enemies and have them do the dirty work for you. On hard mode, this is a valuable tactic. On normal mode though, it's like griefing AI that Far Cry 3 fans already know how to beat. With that in mind, Blood Dragon's normal is a bit on the easy side, and relative to Far Cry 3, it's pretty short. It's also a quarter the price, so before anyone throws a temper tantrum, relax. I completed the story, did every side quest, and collected every meaningless trinket in about 6 hours on normal. It was rewarding, entertaining, and worth my time every second of the way, and I can't wait to replay this gem on hard. The sum of Blood Dragon's parts is basically everything I wanted out of Duke Nukem Forever. It's definitely still Far Cry 3 under all the neon and insanity, but the major changes to how you explore an open world, interact with enemies, and accomplish your goals makes it more fun to play than most action games out there. Blood Dragon pulls off its wacky jokes and silly tone, while giving us a hero so overpowered and stupidly hilarious that I couldn't help but have a hell of a lot of fun with the whole thing. For more on lasers and dragons and all things Far Cry, keep it locked to IGN.
So, you like these two review from IGN? Yeah. So anyway, thanks for watching. If you do, please hit the like button. In these two review, we need to get 5,000 likes. Also, don't forget to subscribe to IGN. I will put the link in the description. And yeah. So. Once again, thanks for watching. God bless you, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.